Hi, I'm Dr. Dave Janda, and please welcome to our Operation Freedom platform, WeThePeopleProcessing.com. You know, are you tired of being threatened to be canceled just because you have a company focused on liberty and freedom? Well, worry no more, folks. WeThePeopleProcessing.com is your go-to merchant services, freedom-based company to provide business service payment solutions. We the People Processing provides their clients a cancel culture-free platform which is domestically based. They provide competitive rates, no contracts with next-day funding, a fully vetted and like-minded financial infrastructure, and full support for integrations, implementation, and e-commerce efforts. Bottom line, WeThePeopleProcessing.com focuses on defending your company's free market growth, values, and future. Check them out at www.WeThePeopleProcessing.com. Once you're on the site, enter in password Operation Freedom or call 855-499-2024. That's WeThePeopleProcessing.com. Then, when on the website, enter Operation Freedom as your password or call 855-499-2024.
Mr. President-elect,
go ahead.
Can you state
She's
categorically?
asking a question.
Mr.
Don't be
President-elect, can you give us a question?
Don't be
You are
rude.
attacking us. Can you give us a question?
Don't be rude. No, I'm not going to give you a
question.
question. I'm not going to give you a question.
Can you state categorically?
You are fake news.
Sir.
I'm Dr. Dave Janda. Welcome back to Dave versus the MSM. I'd like to thank you for joining me today. Thank you for networking the information we provide on this platform to your friends and families and coworkers and neighbors. The more people that become educated with facts and data, the sooner we end this reign of terror by the deep state. And in fact, contrary to what the deep state, the New World Order crowd, the totalitarian thugs, the shadow government, the criminal international banking syndicate, the globalist syndicate, they're all the same. No matter what they want you to believe, they are not all powerful. And in fact, I know this is heresy. And I'm sure this will lead to obliterated view counts, obliterated notifications, obliterated across the board based on this platform. But here's the dirty little secret. The syndicate has gotten handcuffed. Huh? Oh no, they're all powerful. No, everything they do works out for their own good, and though they're in charge and everything goes their way. No. No, if you watch their actions, and their actions are indicative of they are desperate and panicked and in trouble. Fact. So why am I saying that the globalists have gotten handcuffed? They actually did get handcuffed from an unexpected source from them. And I think we can thank Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito for this. There have been a number of very positive, freedom-based decentralization decisions that have been made of late by the Supreme Court. Look, the deep state, let's just call it that, wants as much centralization of power on the federal and international level as they can get, because that way they can hand out their little dictates through their little puppets who are all whores of the system and negatively impact your freedoms and my freedoms. Decentralization is their enemy. And if you look at these recent Supreme Court decisions, whether it's the Dobbs decision, where things are decentralized, the decision is decentralized back to each state on that medical intervention, because if we mention the name, right? Whether we look at the 4 decisions that were pro-Second Amendment, or if we look at the decision that supported the free speech of a football coach on the West Coast, but the real blockbuster that really cuffed him up, really just put him like this, right, was the decision West Virginia versus the EPA. Why do I say that? Because in a nutshell, that decision destroyed the regulatory mafia bureaucrats, also known as the senior executive service. We've spoken about that level, the senior executive service level, which are nothing more than deep state operatives that are at a huge level across every department, across every regulatory agency. They are the ones that develop the freedom-stripping policies and the freedom-stripping agenda of how those policies are going to be implemented. This decision by the Supreme Court, it doesn't just apply to the EPA. It applies to the CDC, the NIH, the FDA, the SEC, across the board. Handcuffs the regulatory mafia bureaucrats, the senior executive service level, which are comprised of unelected, unaccountable, globalist scum who inflict coercive dictates on the public and have done so for decades. And if you doubt whether that's the case, if what we have gone through for the past almost 3 years now if that does not convince you of the enormity of this decision and the fact that they are now all handcuffed, I don't think anything will. Every agency just got gutted by the court. The decision essentially states that Congress, not the agencies, have the power to impose rules and regulations, not the unaccountable, unelected hacks at the senior executive service level of agencies. This is an enormous decision for freedom. And I don't believe it was just a coincidence it came out right before Independence Day weekend. A number of us have fought for this decision for almost 40 years. This from Liz Peek, lest you doubt me. Liz Peek, excellent journalist. Supreme Court decision regarding West Virginia versus EPA is huge. Believe it or not, overturning the R.V. Wade case may not be the Supreme Court's most dramatic decision this year. Instead, its ruling on West Virginia versus the Environmental Protection Agency could prove far more consequential. It literally upends how government works, for the better, for once. West Virginia versus the EPA asks whether important policies that impact the lives of all Americans should be made by unelected, unaccountable, D.C. bureaucrats or by Congress. The Supreme Court has decided by their ruling that executive agency fiat, dictate, is no longer accessible. The case involves the Clean Power Plan, which was adopted under Barack Obama to fight climate change. The program was estimated to cost as much as $33 billion per year and would have completely reordered our nation's power grid, just what the globalists want, right? Because that sends us into the dark ages much quicker in more ways than one. The state of West Virginia, joined by 2 coal companies and others, sued the EPA, arguing the plan was an abuse of power. By deciding in favor of West Virginia, the court has begun to rein in the vast powers of the alphabet agencies in D.C. that run our lives and return it to legislators who we elect to create legislation. Just as the Supreme Court ruled in the Dobbs case that abortion laws are more appropriate left up to the people's elected representatives, decentralization. MyShield products are EPA and FDA approved and are proven ready to help you, your family, and your community neutralize COVID, bacteria, viruses, spores, and fungi. The water-based alcohol-free hand sanitizer foam and disinfectants are safe for people, animals, and the environment. Application of the MyShield products has been confirmed by independent studies to provide persistent protection for 28 days on surfaces and for 4 hours on the skin with just one application with a very quick dry time. Check out MyShield products at OperationFreedomHealth.com. That's OperationFreedomHealth.com. It decided in West Virginia versus EPA that Congress, and not unelected bureaucrats in federal agencies, should write our laws. A decision that puts Congress in charge, and did, stalls environmental rules intended to replace fossil fuels with renewable energy. It puts legislators back in the driver's seat, who would have to debate the issues and then go back to the public with the consequences and costs of regulations that are now adopted with little buy-in from the public. This from Emma Neuberger. Supreme Court limits EPA authority to set climate standards for power plants. The Supreme Court limited the Environmental Protection Agency's authority to set standards on climate change greenhouse gas emissions for existing power plants. The 6-3 ruling said that Congress, not the EPA, has that power. The court's ruling on the case affects the federal government's authority to set standards for planet-warming pollutants like carbon dioxide. The decision has a major impact on the Biden administration's The Globalists agenda, not only to combat climate change, but every aspect as it deals with regulations and rules. This one decision handcuffed every globalist scum in the government. Fact. And I can tell you, because I have been integral in this day coming over the years. A number of us have. I've put well over 30 some years into this. The blowback I got from deep state operatives was enormous when this decision came through. Why? And let me tell you their reaction. They're panicked. And they're desperate because they know what this means. They just got gutted. And then you add to it, as I mentioned earlier, the Supreme Court sides with the football coach who led student prayer. There were 4 pro-Second Amendment decisions. So we know by the scum's reaction, I can tell you personally, that they're panicked, they're desperate. But then we had some public reactions. AOC, the barmaid? Yeah. AOC accuses Supreme Court of a coup. A coup? I'm surprised she didn't accuse him of an insurrection. Yeah. And calls for the Supreme Court to be done away with. Well, you want to move for an insurrection? Right there, what AOC just proposed is indicative of an insurrection, removing the Supreme Court. She's guilty of it. This from Summit News. Globalist Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez accused the Supreme Court of instigating a coup and called for it to be completely abolished in a series of rants. Then we had Mayor Lightfoot, or Mayor Lightweight, in my former hometown of Chicago, right? She was at a pride parade, and because of the decisions from the Supreme Court, she screamed, F. Clarence Thomas, end quote. Oh, there's leadership. But it's indicative of their panic and their desperation. And here's another one the bought-off lamestream media is not going to tell you about. So when all this was happening, are you aware that the Supreme Court agreed to hear a case, now listen, more decentralization, that could give state legislators and legislatures, not judges, power to regulate elections? Oh. This is from Matthew Vadum. When all this was going on, the Supreme Court decided to hear an important new case that made many freedom-based people hope will re-empower state legislatures to make rules for redistricting and governing congressional and presidential elections. Well, they don't want that. They want it all centralized, right? Let the poobahs call the shots, especially the unelected ones. Yeah, like Fauci and all those people. Let them call all the shots of who lives and who dies. Yeah. Republicans say the U.S. Constitution has always directed authorized state legislatures to make rules for the conduct of elections, including presidential elections. Democrats say this idea, encompassed by the independent state legislature doctrine, is a fringe conservative legal theory that could endanger voting rights. The Supreme Court has reportedly never ruled on the doctrine. The doctrine, if endorsed by the High Court, could allow state legislatures to select presidential electors in disputed elections. Uh-oh. How does that plan into, just look at what happened in 20, right? Yeah. Election law expert J. Christian Adams, a former U.S. Department of Justice civil rights attorney, who now heads the public interest group Legal Foundation, an election integrity group, praised the Supreme Court for granting the case, which he says is very important. Yes, it is. You see, the globalists are handcuffed by an unexpected source. That being the United States Supreme Court. And I believe we can thank the leadership of Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito, who I think influenced a number of the other justices to see the light, to see the freedom beacon of light, that shining city on a hill that Ronald Reagan spoke about, as opposed to that dark dark castle from Transylvania that Soros and Schwab and Clintons and the Bushes and the Romneys and the Ryans and the Bidens and the Obamas all emanated from. Right. It's a new day, folks. It really is. That's not hopium. It's the truth. The globalists are handcuffed. They're panicked. They're desperate. And now, it's our role to continue to push ahead on the freedom agenda, to hold each and every one of our state and federal representatives saying, okay, now you got the power. What are you going to do? And what are you not going to do? The Supreme Court just stripped every federal agency of their powers and every globalist scum bureaucrat of their powers. And now we're watching you and everything you do. And here is the agenda you need to follow. A freedom-based agenda for every American. Not just a select few, for every American. And we're watching. And if you don't follow that agenda, I'm going to get my neighbors, my family, everyone at work, everyone I know, and we're going to support somebody to run against you in the primary and get you out of your big fat leather chair and find somebody that's going to work for us and not against us and against our freedoms. That scares the living daylights out of them, folks. In the Supreme Court, just handcuffed each and every one of those people that have been working against us for decades. Fact. I thank you for joining me today. You can join me 24/7 at davejanda.com. Look, Our subscription platform. Extra shows, extra guests, extra analysis, archives to all of our shows. I go into great depth on that platform. I put 17 hours a day, 7 days a week into that platform. Why? Because I believe it's important. And we have to have a censor-free platform to do that with. I cannot do it on this platform or Rumble or any of the other social media platforms. There is no better in-depth content on the internet than DaveJanda.com. The price is a fraction of what it takes to put that content there and to protect it. Websites are very expensive to run, many thousands of dollars every month if you do it right, and we do it right. You get priceless information for $9 a month. Less than most places will sell you a small pizza for. Chuck the one pizza a month and sign up for the subscription. It's priceless. If you listen to our subscribers, the information there that we present on that platform saves lives. Saves lives. Not hyperbole. Fact. I hope you become part of our freedom family. Until next time, Dave Janda signing off. Dream big and dare to fail. Thanks for your time today.